G'day everyone, welcome to my channel, and if you are new, thank you for popping in. What I'm going to do is I have been working on this image just in my own time, and I've been using INKTENSE, and I thought I would come in and show you just a I guess more beginner friendly way of working with INKTENSE with this image, because this image surprisingly doesn't have a lot of detail. It is from the Circle of Life by Malponeni Chatasapanag. I can't say it. I got it close. But yeah, so I figured I'd show you just what I'm doing with INKTENSE. You know, like I wasn't trying to do anything too fancy with this image. It was more just to kind of zone out and, you know, that mindless kind of thought and colouring. So the first thing that I went in and did was lay down the background water area. And this is the beauty of INKTENSE. You don't need a sharp pencil, and it doesn't need to be perfect where we're laying it down. Just making sure I'm in frame. I'm just coming in and laying a little bit of pigment in the areas that I will want this iris blue to be. Where I want a little bit darker at the base, I'm going in a little bit harder with the pencil. And as I come out, I am softening off on the pencil and just applying a little bit less of the pigment down. And that will provide a natural transition from darker into lighter just by having less pigment initially down on the page. So the colour, I don't know if I've told you, the colour I'm using is iris blue. Okay, so then what I do is I'm going to use a fine water brush, but you can use a fine paintbrush too. So you could use a fine tipped paintbrush. The reason why I'm using a fine one is because I do have to get into a few nooks and crannies as I'm doing this. Now, when I use the INKTENSE brush, INKTENSE less is more. I need the brush damp, but I don't want it sopping wet. So what I tend to do is, you can see there that the water is moving down the brush. I let it drip off and I touch the tip just to draw out that excess water so that my brush is damp, but it's not sopping crazy wet. And then I'm coming in and I'm using a circular motion. And the reason I'm using a circular motion is I want to agitate this pigment out and blend it together so it looks like a solid image. So I didn't, and you would have noticed that I didn't actually colour, and you can see here, I haven't bothered to colour every square inch of the image. I have just put enough down that I think will activate out and cover the entire area. There we go. And I will do the same in here. So again, letting the water drop off, touching the edge. Because I've put more pigment down in this section, it should come up and be a little bit more vibrant in its intensity. And then I picked up too much water then. What happens if you pick up too much water is it will actually cause the paper to start pilling. That was my error. So still working in those kind of tiny circular motions. And pushing the pigment around the page. And if I decided later that I wanted this darker, because it's Inktense, it's easy to come back in over the top of it and do another layer. I recommend just starting with less than you think, and you can always build it up, because it's always surprising just how much pigment comes out from the tiniest amount. Like I think when I was doing this, I sharpened a couple of pencils for the first time, and I've had these for a fair while, because you don't need them sharp, because you're not trying to get into super edges. And I'm like, wow, I can't believe I'm actually sharpening these. So you can see out here where I've put less down that we've got a softer blue wash than in here where we had more. So I've got that darker blue wash there just to provide that gradient. And there we go with the iris blue. I'm going to go off and just do this little bit and then I'll be back and show you the next stage. Okay, so we're back. I've done the iris blue through all of this, and now we're going to get in and do the waves. And for this, I used indigo blue, deep indigo, and sea blue are the two colors I'm using for this. So I'm taking in the indigo blue and putting it quite heavy in the places where the lines indicate that there would be some depth or some shading. So just coming in, kind of thinking about where I might want a bit of that. And also in these smaller little splashes, I'm just putting the indigo down in the bottom corner. Now you can sharpen your pencil if you are worried about getting it into those places. I'm lazy, so I'm just going to try and make it work. Now you can take Inktense straight off palette, so you could actually scribble this on a palette of some sort. So something, I just have like cheap chopping boards. You can scribble it on here and activate it and paint it as a water paint color, which I tend to do in some things depending on what kind of effect I'm going for. But for this image, it's just about putting the pencil straight on and working with that. So still just doing that indigo. So the good thing about using the INKTENSE is we don't have to be too particular about, making the blends right or anything, because that will come once we activate it. It helps with taking the stress away from what you're doing when you're putting it down. All right, so I've got the indigo. Now I'm going to come in with sea blue, and I'm just going to take it out. Now I'm not going to take it all the way on these splashes, because I'm going to move it out so that it fades in. So that's the plan when I come back into it. And then coming in to these little splashes and adding a little bit there as well. Okay, so we've got that in, and we're going to come back in and do the same thing as we were doing before. I'm going to use the fine one again because these are small areas, and tipping it off. So I'm going to start in the sea blue area and push it out, and then I'm going to bring it back to the indigo. So that way I get a little bit of a gradient effect occurring with the sea blue, and then activating and deepening up the... Now with this, if it feels like it's getting too dark, just come back in and wipe off the tip of your brush. And then back down into this indigo. So try not to bring the dark up into the top part of these splashes, because the indigo will spread quite a fair way and take over. So you have to work fairly fast with INKTENSE because it does dry quite quickly, and once it dries, it is permanent. Well, mostly permanent. So it's just about thinking about where are you going to place this and which direction you're going to push it. But generally pushing back into the dark so that you're not spreading out that darker colour, and then coming back into the light and washing off, like wiping off the tip of the brush each time, or when it starts to get a little bit heavy with the pigment. So this one I want to drag quite out a bit, so I've left a little bit of that darker indigo on so that I can drag it out. And then we go with those. And then we're going to do the same thing in these little splashes. Going to push the sea blue and then back into the indigo. Pushing out the sea blue, back into the indigo. So I'm going to go do that for the rest of this, and I will show you what I'm doing, and then we will come back after that. the fish. So I've used a couple of different blends or different colours for the fish over here. The tiger fish, that's what I'm calling it. I used tangerine and, no, that's the wrong colour. Sun yellow. So I've taken, just put some orange along the base, into the tail, base of the fins. I think that's the only tiger one on this side, and then in with the sun yellow. I'm not worried about going to the edges because I will let my brush bring out those pigments as we do that. So, oh. I'm dropping things, which is normal. Dropping things seems part of the go. Alright, so let's do the same thing. So here's a, and then up into the yellow, and push that out. So there we go with that. And then the next one, which is these ones here, the spotted ones, I used Sicilian yellow. So just where here. And then I'm going to activate it and push it out so I get a fade. So I'm letting the pigment put that gradient in for me. That's that one. So you can see I'm trying not to make it complex. I'm letting the kind of colours spread and fade out, which basically makes it a little bit easier. All right, the next one I used was these purplish ones. And I'm trying to remember what colours I used in that one. I think I used fuchsia and... So I've got fuchsia and dusky purple are the two that I used. So the fuchsia I've gone around the front and the fin and the tail. Doing that. And then coming in with the dusky purple and putting that in the center of the fish. I've got a bit of a sniffly nose this morning when I'm filming this because it's a bit cold here at the moment. I always find that when I get up at first thing in the morning, there's just because it's been cold air all night. My nose is a little bit sniffly, so I do apologise if I sound a little bit nasally. All right. So there's these fellas done. Let's come and activate them. So again, I'm going to activate and then push it out so that I get like from light to dark. Or from dark to light. Help if I got my things around the right way, hey? I'm going going to just come in with that dusky purple and swirl it on and around there. And I'm not too worried if I've got light or dark sections when I swirl it around, because that kind of gives the appearance of the change in the scales anyway. The beauty of working with INKTENSE is you just get a page done so quickly. It certainly doesn't take a great deal of time to cover the page and have it looking really nice. And I did the fish with colours because I wanted them to stand out from the water. You know, you can make them more realistic colours if you wanted to, but I was kind of like, oh, I'm just going to go for some colour. You get pretty coloured fish. Okay, this last little bubby down here. There's a little one. Okay, then with all of the little tiny fish swimming around, I've come along with red violet, and I've just put a smidge, okay, technical term, a smidge, into these at the tail end. I'm just going to sharpen that a little bit because it's getting blunt, and because they're quite tiny, I just want to be able to do that. Now, if you wanted to, with the INKTENSE, if you used a hand sharpener, like a little handheld sharpener, you could actually collect the little ink shavings and use that on a palette. So that's another way to make them, kind of making it into an ink watercolour paste. Okay, so that's them. I think I got all of them. I always find I miss them because they're so tiny. All right, let's come in, activate them. I just love how vibrant INKTENSE gets once you activate it. It's like the colour just pops. If you were curious as to what water brushes I'm using the Mott water brushes. I do believe that they're available on Amazon. Okay, that's them. Now I'm going to come in and do the flowers, and I used Poppy Red for them. So again, just focusing on the centre. Bringing from the centre out and making pretty red flowers. I'm just going back over any areas where I think they might need a little bit more, because I've got some pigment on the tip of my brush because I've activated this, so I can use that as shading. Okay, and then the last one was one lonely little leaf I think I saw in this mix. There's not that many leaves. And I used, if I remember correctly, I gotta find it. I used spring green. So spring green, go. Okay, so I'm going to let that dry and then we'll come back and do the finishing off and we'll work on the wood while that's drying. Ooh, I'm just having a drink, sorry. Wood. Okay, let's see the darker parts of the wood first. And for that I used saddle brown and Indian ink, I believe. I'm not trying to remember. Okay, so I used Indian ink, and saddle brown. So with the Indian ink, I'm coming along and putting it in the areas where the shadowing would be. And then I'm just going to run a few little lines through it just so we've got some things. I might put in some where these knots are. And then same back here on the paddles. And into the little corners of the knots. Wait, I didn't do some of the knots in here. Just come back, sorry. Okay, and then coming in with the saddle brown. And same thing, putting most of the pigment along the edges and then into the center. Alright. I'm going to change just over to a broader brush just so I've got a little bit more. I think the problem is the broader brush holds more water, so you've just got to be mindful about how wet the brush is. can see how I'm activating and then pushing it back into the recesses, because I really want that shadow line there, and then I'll draw it out. Okay, now into the edging and the I don't know, that bit. I decided to go a little bit lighter, just to give some contrast to the image. So what I've done, just so it still works in, is I'm using Saddle Brown as my dip color now, and then I'm using Baked Earth. So I'm coming in with a little bit of Saddle Brown. Into where I want the dark colors. Along the edges. There we go. And then I'm going to use Baked Earth and run that along the thing. As you can see, I'm leaving a lot of in to give that highlighted effect. And then I'm going to use this Baked Earth. I'm just going to sharpen it a little bit. And run that along the edge of my spokes. Okay, and then I've got these little bits up here. So same thing, Baked Earth where it's darker. Oh, not Baked Earth, Saddle Brown, sorry. And then a little bit of Baked Earth. Okay, I'm going to go back to my finer brush for these. And do the same thing. Pushing out the pigment so that I get that transition from darker into lighter. I'm coming down the edges, just where the darkness is, and then I'm going to push pigment and leave it a little bit lighter in the center. All right, now I'm just going to use this fine brush again, and I'm going to come along and just activate these edge pieces. And there she be done. Okay, so that's the wood done. Now this is all dried while we've been doing that. And what I did to here is I've used some gel pens. Okay, so the three colours I've got are my white. So I've just got the Uniball Signo white. And then I've got a gold and a silver. So the gold and the silver I've used in the fish. And so for this one here, our fuchsia one, I've just run the silver kind of like where you would imagine like the sun rays to naturally pick up thing. And I'm just running a little bit on scales, so just so it glistens, because fish scales glisten. There we go. So I'm basically using the gel pen as a black line eraser for a bit of this. Not all the black lines, but some of it, just to pick up on that our little fishies are glistening in the sun as they're coming around the water wheel. Okay, and then for the other two colours, because I've used a little bit more yellows and oranges in there, I'm going to use gold as my glisten. So these are metallics. You could use glitter, but I'm using metallics because I actually want to use it as a line eraser as such. So that's why I've used the metallics. Adding a few little there, and down on this little guy here. Okay, I just put a little bit on stripes. There we go. So that's what I've done with the silver and the gold. Now the next part is using, if you want to, so you can see the difference now in leaving the black lines there, but I'm going to go over all of the lines with white gel pen just to give that more of the choppiness look to the foam white of, moving water. That is, obviously just an additional step, but it's up to you. So I'm just going to zone off, do that. I'll film it so you can see as it progresses. But I'm going over all of the bubbles, all of the stuff that is relating to the water. Now you could probably use, if you've got like a white pit pen, you could use Posca. You could use gouache. Like there's lots of different things you could use. It's just the gel pen is here. It's easiest. It's what I pulled out. But it doesn't have to be gel pen for this. It's just a matter of something that can highlight the waves or the splashes. And I'm not too worried if I don't cover all of the black line, because I'm going to use, it will give the indication of shading within that, within the splash. I'm not that pedantic, let's put it that way. I'm kind of like, just, nah, it's close enough. These big hands are not going to be that good with fine detail. And I'm working from right to left so that I don't smudge myself. The joys of left-handedness. So there we go. So that gives that, I guess, more realistic, not that I'm trying to make this realistic, but it gives that more kind of like water look. So I'm going to go off and do all the rest, and I'll see you at the end. Okay, so we're done. We're good. All of this has been completed, and so this is just an idea of one way to use INKTENSE. There is no right way or wrong way. It's all about, what you want to put onto your page. This was just how I was doing it for this image, and I thought I would show you. I hope you have enjoyed, and if you haven't already, it'd be great if you could subscribe, and and leave a like and a comment, all of that kind of stuff, and let me know you're here. That would be great. And I might try to do small little snippets like this of like little parts of the colouring here and there more often. Doing the whole image kind of, especially when it's repetitive, because this is basically a mandala kind of style. I think that might be if you like that idea, just let me know. Excellent. I'm going to go. And as always, remember, be kind, be strong, and be a warrior. And I'll see you later. Bye.